Alan Bergstein is your next speaker.
I'm happy and proud to be here today with this great list of speakers. However, I have the singular feeling that I'm the oldest speaker here today, but that's a plus for senior citizens. You know, I'm like an alta caca, right? I'm an alta caca. Okay. I have to give you full disclosure. I was born a Jewish umbilical cord Democrat. I was raised a Democrat. My parents were socialists. They were refugees. My brother and I were first generation. We both worked ourselves through college. My brother was an economics professor, and I became a school principal in the South Bronx. But we worked our way up, and we were taught through my socialist parents, who didn't know any better, that our future depended on ourselves. What we did, what we accomplished, we would reap the fruits of. And I tried to pass that along to my kids and so forth and so on. But when I became a teacher, I was confronted with, and I was part of the group of teachers who were radical leftists. And I didn't understand this. I said, here we are, we're trying to teach people. In my house in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, where I was born, my parents and my grandparents spoke Yiddish. We had a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with 5 people, and they spoke Yiddish among themselves, but my brother and I were not permitted to speak Yiddish. We were Americans, we were going to live in this country, and we were going to speak English. I could speak Yiddish fluently now, but I was not permitted to speak English. We were to be assimilated. We were to be Americans. We both served our armed forces during the Korean War, and we were total, complete Americans. And then as I matured mentally, I changed my political affiliations and my views. I became a conservative, a staunch conservative. If I and my brother could make money and own homes and cars and travel, the likes of which my parents never knew, with this country, with the opportunity given to us in this country, why shouldn't I say to other people, you bust your ass also like I did and my brother did to achieve rather than to take? So I became a conservative. In 1968, I joined Rabbi Kahane, and here's my JDL ring from 1968. I became an arch conservative. However, when I moved down here in Florida and I retired in 1991, I moved to West Boca, and I suddenly discovered that here was a compact, heavily Jewish community in South Florida, and I was an outsider. In 1993, I was a member of the Jewish Community Relations Council in West Boca, the South Florida Federation, and it was a time of the Oslo Accords under Bill Clinton. And we were standing in a room. I was on the board of the Jewish Community Relations Council, and they were televising Yitzhak Rabin, Shimon Peres, Bill Clinton, and Yasser Arafat, all shaking hands in the White House lawn. And all of these Jews, fellow Jews, they could buy me over 10 times over, they were applauding, they had tears running down their eyes. They said, they were euphemistic. They said, peace in our time. I said, are you out of your goddamn minds? I said, are you crazy? Yasser Arafat, the 1972 Munich massacre leader, the slaughter of 28 children, he is going to make peace with Israelis? I said, you have to be out of your freaking minds. I was ostracized, and I was eventually kicked out of the Jewish Community Relations Council because I was too Jewish. I was too pro-Israel. So I embarked on speaking into communities, into Jewish communities, because most of the communities in Boca, Boynton Beach, and Delray Beach, honestly, are Jewish communities. And I walked into a devil's den when I walked in there, and I spoke up for Israel. They said, don't you understand Israel is an occupying nation? Israel is an oppressor of the Palestinians. And they said to me, do you want Muslims killed? I said, I never said I want Muslims killed. I said, I want Israel to survive, and I want Israel to fight its wars. If the Palestinians start a war against Israel, I want a war to the finish. I was raised during World War II. I was a kid in Brooklyn in World War II. And I remember when the Nazis and the Japanese surrendered, it was unconditional surrender. We beat them down. We beat them down. We bombed Dresden. Remember the Dresden firebombing? We bombed Bremerhaven. We bombed Cologne. We bombed Berlin. And we atom bombed Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We fought a war to the finish. Unconditional surrender. Israel was never permitted to do that. And I said Israel should be permitted to wipe out the Palestinians, kill their leaders. When I was in basic training in Fort Dix, I was not taught social work, how to meet with the civilians, and how to clean their toilets for them. I was given daily practice in basic training, bayonet training to kill, throw grenades to kill, 3.5-inch rocket launcher to destroy. I was taught to kill. Unfortunately, and I have to say this, my Jewish brethren down here in South Florida, killing is abhorrent. You're not supposed to kill. You're supposed to sit down. You're supposed to negotiate. You're supposed to talk to people. You're supposed to reason. And if that all fails, you have to appease them. You have to give them what they want, and then there will be peace. This is absolute in Yiddish, Mizuk, that's total narishkeit, or in another word, that's bupkis. I believe if you fight a war, you fight a war to win. You don't fight a war to sit down to negotiate. Unconditional surrender. President Roosevelt, Churchill had unconditional surrender. And this is what I want, and this is what I preach. And I go into Jewish communities, and these are my worst enemies. I have to say it. The Jewish community down here, 78% voted for Barack Obama in 2008. And I went into these communities, and these liberals assaulted me. They said, listen, look what you're talking, foolishness. Barack Obama, he's black, we have to have a black president. So I say to them in all honesty, and you do this, you try this, speak to a Jewish liberal. You will never get an answer, you'll just get spit in your face, you'll get anger, you'll get insults. Ask every Jewish liberal. Say to them, listen, let me ask you a question. Don't you understand, aren't you aware that Barack Obama, for 20 years, belonged to a Jew-hating church, the United Trinity Church of Christ in Chicago, under Reverend Jeremiah Wright, who was an avowed Jew-hater, Israel hater? Are you aware that Barack Obama was best friends with Louis Farrakhan in Chicago? That he was best friends with William Ayers? All Jew haters, Israel haters, anti-democracy haters. Jeremiah Wright said, the chickens have come home to roost in 9/11. He called Israel a pariah nation. Are you aware that Barack Obama was part and parcel of that group? He was basically a member of a black KKK for 20 years. And why did you vote for him? Give me one reason why you voted for him. What was wrong with John McCain? Well, now I know. But what was... But at that time, in Yiddish it's nicht wissendig, I didn't know. I said, please explain to me why you voted for Barack Hussein Obama, not once, 78% in 2008 and 68% in 2012. Could you please explain why you voted for him? Never, ever have I gotten a rational answer. They turn on their heels, they walk away, they curse me, and what have you. But I don't care. I repeat that question to them time and time again. So the Jewish community down here is my enemy and your enemy. I cannot walk into a synagogue and speak. B'nai Torah, Rabbi Steinhardt, you know that synagogue way out west. I walked in to sit down and listen to Susan Rice speak a few years ago, telling the Jewish community why Barack Obama was the best friend Israel ever had. Wait a second, I wanted to walk into that synagogue. It was an open meeting. I was confronted by a representative of that synagogue, and she said, "You're not permitted to enter this place." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Ever since I was a kid, I've walked into synagogues." She says, "Alan Bergstein, you're not permitted into this synagogue." So I said, "Well, listen, it was a public meeting. It was advertised in the Sun Sentinel, open, and I'm going in." She says, "No, you're not." They hired 6 deputy sheriffs from Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. They took out their handcuffs. It's on video. It's on video. And they said, if you enter this synagogue, and if you don't leave the premises, not only the synagogue, you will be arrested. It's shame, S-H-A-M-E, Rabbi Steinhardt. You look it up on your YouTube. It's fully videotaped. They were going to arrest me in a synagogue. Then we have our Jewish leaders in our community. This is my battle. I'm local. I'm not Tennessee. I'm not Virginia. I'm not Washington. I am Boca Raton, Delray Beach, Boynton Beach. We have our rabbis in our community who kiss the ass of the Muslims, the radical imams. I curse. I'm from Brooklyn, so I curse. They kiss the asses of these Muslims. You have a rabbi in Boynton Beach. His shul is on Woolbright Boulevard. I've debated him many times. I'll give you a hint. His name is Rabbi Barry Silver. He had Bassem al-Halabi. Joe spoke about Bassem al-Halabi. He has him in his shul all the time. Bassem al-Halabi, the president of the Islamic Center of Boca Raton. I was at an Islamophobia conference about 2.5 years ago. Bassem al-Halabi was part of the forum, Islamophobia, telling us why it was very bad and un-American to be against Islam. Bassem al-Halabi, the president of the Islamic Center of Boca Raton, who sent supplies to Syria to kill Israeli troops. That's what those supplies were for. He gets up in front of a full audience, many times bigger than this audience, unfortunately, and he says, "You know what? The Quran is right." He says, "A thief in this country should have his hands cut off so to prevent him from future crimes." Not one word in the newspaper, not one word in the media. He got away with it. And he is invited into the synagogues. You have Rabbi Steinhardt and another rabbi from Temple Bethel in Boca who have, and I have written emails from them, urging and encouraging their members to go and visit the Islamic Center of Boca Raton to learn about Islam. There is a word in Arabic, taqiyya. Have you heard of the word taqiyya? Taqiyya means deception and deceit. If an imam comes into your synagogue or into your civic center and says, "We believe in peace, we believe that all religions should work together," that is taqiyya. That is prescribed in the Quran. It says a Muslim should and must take infidels and deceive them in order to work into them and change their attitude or basically kill them. This is taqiyya, this is Islam, this is radicalism. We have a problem. And Joe mentioned the Islamic Center of Boca Raton and the voting. Susan Booker, the Democrat supervisor of elections in Palm Beach County, unannounced, said that the Islamic Center of Boca Raton should be a polling place for the citizens. A mosque filled with terrorism. In fact, Ibrahim Dramali, he was deported by the FBI for terrorist activities. He's no longer in this country. She was going to put that mosque in as a polling center so that we, and I live 2 blocks from that mosque, should go there and vote. We don't know what's hidden in the cellars. Might there be munitions in those cellars? Might there be weapons in those cellars? We don't know. But because I blew the whistle, that mosque was terminated as a voting center. Whatever. No. Now, it's not over yet. Susan Booker had a secret meeting in that mosque. Mark Campbell was there. Am I right, Mark? Mark was there, And they had a city councilman from Boca Raton sitting in that mosque with a couple of other people planning to have that mosque changed again back into a voting center. It's not over yet. Susan Buka, I guarantee you, within the next couple of months is going to she's going to say that that mosque is a voting center again. And do you know who supported her? Ted Deutsch and Lois Frankel. They came out vociferously in support of that mosque as being a polling center. We have a problem in this community, and my problem is that the Jewish community is acquiescent, willing to give in, they are compliant, and they're suicidal with reference to Islam in this community. We have, in Broward County, we have a sheriff's deputy who is the head of CARE South Florida. His name is Nazir Hamzeh. Nazir Hamzeh is a sheriff's deputy in Broward County. Even though he was a member of an organization, CARE, which has been labeled a terrorist organization by this government. He is going to be running for the sheriff of Broward County. Believe me, you wait in a year or so, he's going to be running for the sheriff's position in Broward County. He will be supported by Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He will be supported by the Democrat Party of Broward County, Alcee Hastings, Congressman Alcee Hastings. They will push him to be the sheriff of Broward County, which will be the first time that a radical Muslim Nazir Hamzeh, will become the sheriff of Broward County. This is the encroachment into our society by radical Islam, willingly taken. And the Jewish community, my burden in this area is the Jewish community. They are absolutely unwilling to understand what's going on because they are Democrats. Because they are Democrats. You have Professor Robert Watson. You've heard of Professor Robert Watson? 6'3", ex-football player, gorgeous guy, got long curly hair, slim as a rail. He speaks to Hadassah women constantly. Every single week, Robert Watson will be on the lecture circuit to Jewish women. They adore him. They adore him. He is a radical Democrat. He spoke at one of the developments in Boynton Beach. I was in attendance there. And he spoke out vociferously against Netanyahu. He called him basically a terrorist and a warmonger. They applauded him. Jewish women applauded him for saying that the democratically elected prime minister of Israel is a warmonger. They applauded the guy. I don't understand. I could not get in there to talk. It's not fair. I can't get into federations to talk to them. I'm outlawed because I'm a Jew who speaks differently. Jews, I'm sorry I'm attacking Jews, but I have to. Jews believe in diversity, right? You have to have diversity in the schools, and the colleges, and the jobs. Jews believe in diversity. But they do not believe in political diversity. That's a no-no. If you're a Democrat, you can come in, you can talk to us. But if you're a Republican, you can't. I went into a place called Vizcaya. In Delray Beach, there's a development called Vizcaya. Beautiful development. And I walked into these liberals, and I said to them, it's amazing, I walk into this progressive community, liberal, Democrat, progressive community, upscale community. You don't believe in the wall in Mexico because you're progressives. You don't believe in voter ID, where people have to show voter ID to vote, and you believe in unrestricted immigration through the border. Am I right, I say to them? And they look at me, yeah. I said, isn't this strange when I came into this community? I drive my car, I'm confronted by a guardhouse. A guy walks out with a military uniform and a sidearm, and he asks me for my ID. I have to show him my voter ID. He gets on the phone, he says, is Alan Bergstein welcome in this community? Someone has to say yes. Then he opens up a gate that I can drive through, and then I drive in, and I see that this beautiful community is surrounded by a 10-foot wall. So I said to these people, why is it that you're against all of these things I just said, but in your community, You espouse protectionism. You don't share. I said, why don't you open up your glorious community to the less thans around you where they could play golf in your community. The kids could come in and swim in your swimming pool. They could use your clubhouse. They could use your tennis courts. Why is it that in the United States of America we have to acquiesce to all of these needs, but in your little tight community you refuse to do what you want this government to do? I said, you're hypocrites. You know what? I'll never go back there again because I'll never be invited back there again. We have a problem. The hypocritical Jewish community, they vote against Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump. But yet they love Hillary Clinton, who basically had Huma Abedin. You know who Huma Abedin is? Huma Abedin is her lover. She's Muslim Brotherhood. Her whole family is Muslim Brother. She is Muslim Brother. Had Hillary, seriously now, I like to joke around. Had Hillary Clinton won the election on November 8th, it would have been the death knell for Israel. It would have been the death knell for Israel. The Palestinians were hoping against hope for Hillary Clinton to be elected. It was absolutely a negative thing for them to have Trump. This is a man they despise, Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump probably, from what I understand, within the next couple of weeks, he's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. This is what I heard. So what I've done is we formed a group, a new group. It's a political group. It's called the JUDEO-CHRISTIAN Republican Club. We started 4 months ago. We now have 130 paid members. We are not only a political group supporting Donald Trump and Republican conservative values, which built this country, but we also are Judeo-Christian. We're basically based on Judeo-Christian values from the Torah and the New Testament. We are forcefully against radical Islam. We have our speakers who are incredible speakers. This is what we have to do. All of us here, Jews and Christians alike, are in the same boat now. Christians are being beheaded regularly because there are no more Jews in the Middle East to attack. So we must join, we must unite, we must fight together. If we don't, we're lost. If they separate us because we're Christian Jews, we lose. So what we are trying to do in our community is build up resistance to this mosque. They just bought 19 acres in West Boca. Are you aware of that? The Muslim community bought 19 acres in West Boca along Lyons Road for another mosque. There is a brand new one now in Military Trail. It's only been up a year or two. They are building mosques. A mosque is not basically for Muslims to pray in. It is like an animal setting its territory. They are building mosques around this community. And this is a danger to all of us. If we do not wake up and realize that the threat is right in our community, right here in FAU, with the Students for Justice in Palestine. They had 2 events about 5 and 6 years ago. One, they put posters up on walls, eviction notices, and then they put white plastic bags on campus in FAU with ketchup on it, basically saying that these are the Palestinians' children who are being killed by the Israelis. And they got away with it. They got away with it. In fact, a small group of us met with Charlie Brown. He's one of the deans at FAU. He was the dean who was responsible for student activities, and we confronted him. And he says, well, the students have every right, free expression, free speech, they have every right to demonstrate on campus. And I said to him, Dean Brown, I wanted to call him Charlie Brown, I wanted to call him Charlie. I said, Dean Brown, they had every right, and I agree, they had every right to demonstrate on campus, but you had every responsibility to condemn them, and you didn't do that. You did not condemn them. And silence is acceptance. And I said to Dr. Charlie Brown, I said, because he happened to be black, I said, Dr. Brown, if there were a KKK group on campus and they hanged blacks in effigy on the front lawn of FAU, would you have been silent as well? He sounded like Ralph Cramden, you know, the honeymooners, Abba, 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 Abba. And this is what we will get if we remain silent. If we remain, I encourage you to speak up and speak out. If your rabbi at a synagogue gives a sermon giving praise to the Muslims, saying that we have to learn about them, you have every right as a dues-paying member of that synagogue to stand up and say to that rabbi, I oppose what you say. You're a dues-paying member and he works for you. A rabbi is not an unpaid volunteer. He gets paid good bucks. Stand up and speak out. Don't be afraid. If you're afraid to speak out, you're doomed. You're doomed. This is what happened to Cuba. This is what happened to Venezuela. This is what happened to Russia. And if we acquiesce, we are doomed. All I can say to you is speak out, have guts, have koyach. In Yiddish, the term is koyach. Have strength in Hebrew. Have the koyach, have the strength. Have the self-worth, not for you, but for your grandchildren. The school systems are gone. I was a principal in New York. School systems are gone. And every despot, every totalitarian regime in the 20th century, the first thing they do is they take over the educational system, then they take over the media, and once they take over the political system, you're dead meat. Right now, November 8th, 2016 saved us. But that's not for long, because they're pushing, they're fighting, the liberals, the progressives, the Muslims, the terrorists, the communists, are pushing to take over our political system. Once that's gone, your grandchildren are doomed. So speak up, not for yourself, but speak up for your grandchildren. Thanks.
But
I'm really Bob's younger brother.
he is in spirit and passion and heart. I just got to say, it only took 6 cops to get him out of there. They were overmatched. This is what you can be if you believe in something. This man is 84 years old, and my wife, who happens to be the most beautiful woman in the world and who I love dearly after far more than 30 years. I'm going to just put it out there. I love this guy. Don't worry. Question and answers.
A few years ago, my wife and I and a lot of other people took your course at FAU when the Muslim Students Association hung up those signs, as you well reported. I took away a lot of things from that lecture about the Koran. As a matter of fact, you told us to get a copy of the Koran, which most of us in the course did, and note the 124 anti-Christian and Jewish statements in today's English Koran, along with the several surahs that say if you don't convert, you die in 30 days. So a few months ago, we had Dr. JUDEO-CHRISTIAN speak at CFNS, and that was the last question he took. And I said, Dr. Jasser, you are a modern American Muslim. When you go to the mosque, do you read those 124 statements? Do you read the surahs that say if you don't convert, you die? Do you read when you are a thief, they cut off your arm? And he said, listen, that's the old stuff. That's the old stuff. When we read about cutting off an arm, we say in today's America, it means you are giving up a friend. And that's how he got around the core statements in today's Koran. But he didn't really judge it. No, my question really is to you, how do you debate Zuhdi Jasser, who is a modern American Muslim?
Debating a Muslim is extremely hard because they lie. They lie. They're instructed by the Quran to lie. You cannot have them on a witness stand because their law is higher than our constitutional law. Their law is the law from God. The Quran is written by God. If I were to take a Quran, which is printed in China, and I put it on the floor and step on it, I should be killed. I should be killed. I used to like Zuhdi Jasser. I no longer like him because I think that he is basically giving us bupkis. He's lying to us for Islam. No one can be a Muslim, go to the mosque, and walk out saying, I love everybody, I love Jews and Christians. If you go to the mosque, you must believe in the Quran. You have to believe in the Quran. If you go into the mosque and say to the imam, listen, I don't like these 164 verses that are anti-Jewish and anti-Christian, the imam will tell you, then you're not a Muslim. You're not a Muslim. And getting back to FAU, I did a lecture series of 4 lectures at FAU. I had tremendous response. Everyone came over to me and said, I want your course again. And I went to the director at FAU, Senior Studies, I forgot what the name of that group is. He says, no, you're not coming back. We don't like what you had to say. This is FAU. This is university system. Diversity. Nonsense.
I just want to plug the JUDEO-CHRISTIan Republican Club. It's a fantastic idea, fantastic group. Just really is.
I disagree with one thing you said when you said when your rabbi says go learn about Islam. Go learn about Islam, but ask Alan to come and lecture or ask me to come and lecture. The other thing is that Muslims also have their hypocrites. They're called munafiqun in Arabic. They're hypocrites because they are not going on jihad. They are not going out and killing Jews. That's their version of hypocrites.
Well, all I know is that I'm very content with myself. I feel that I'm doing a job. But we Jews, I'm speaking to the Jewish community now, because this is like I said, my birth. We've got to stand up and fight. We've got to be the Maccabees again, the Maccabees. We've got to say to ourselves, look at us, we've survived 2,000 years in a diaspora, and we have a country, Israel, and now we have Jews in this country and in Israel who want Israel to be destroyed. J Street, the biggest anti-Jewish organization in the country, founded by Democrats, is invited into the synagogues. Temple B'nai Israel, Temple B'nai Torah, and Temple Beth El all invited J Street on a red carpet to indoctrinate their parishioners, their members, to believe in J Street. J Street says Israel is the oppressor, the occupier, and Israel is bad. Rabbis, they have to be deposed. What can I tell you?
Oh, real quick, how many people have seen the Professor Chop Chop video? Oh, God, you guys can go. I got it here if you want to show.
Thank you for validating what I believed all along. I'm Jewish, I'm an immigrant, came to the United States in '49, and I saw the beauty of what America is. Lived in the South Bronx. I'd like to talk to you later. The issue that I have with Jews, and I've gone shopping from the Temple Israel, from Reform to Conservative, back again. There seems to be a change, and I kind of blame the Reform movement for really ruining Judaism. They are more interested in being accepted, to being assimilated, to being non-Jewish. They embrace environmentalism, the progressive movement, at the expense of their Jewish identity. And I think that's probably the biggest problem with Jews. I fight them all the time. I've left both places, we've argued with a number of them, and it's strange when they say, if you're Republican.
I may be admonished for saying this, but the Reform movement, my brother, he should rest in peace, when he moved to West Virginia, had to join a Reform congregation in West Virginia. And he labeled it not the reform movement, he labeled it the deformed movement. I hate to say it, the reform movement, if they want to be liberal, fine, but do not be anti-Israel. And the reform movement is anti-Israel. They stand with the Palestinians. If you go to the reform movement, the synagogues, they'll have imams come in, they'll have radical progressives come in, they'll have communists come in. They will not, no reform synagogue will have a conservative speaker come in. The doors are locked. And that's my problem with the reform movement. They're entitled to think one way, but their actions against Israel, totally deplorable. And I would like to debate one of the rabbis, but they don't want to do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Bob, thank you.